Senator, welcome back to the program here. Let's start with your legislation to block one of Dallas's new charter amendments. This is the one that would essentially make it easier for citizens or anyone to sue government officials in the city of Dallas. You want to make governmental immunity for cities state law. Is this overturning the will of the voters, though?
Well, no, it's not really about making sovereign immunity state law. It's already state law. The state government created cities and granted them sovereign immunity. It's part of the state's own sovereign immunity. This is structural. It's the very nature of what a city is. It's not something, you notice there's no other city in the state of Texas or in the history of Texas that has had an initiative to revoke sovereign immunity. So it's not overturning the will of the voters in the sense that, we're denying them the ability to sue their government. And really, that's what happened in this election. It was presented to the voters as if, hey, don't you think you should have the right to sue your government? Vote for this and you will. But in fact, that's not what the law is. People already had and have the right to sue their government. If there is negligence, if the government does you harm, you currently can sue the city.
Sure.
It happens all the time. So,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, what this law did was say that anybody who thinks the city isn't doing what they should do, anybody whose opinion it is that the city isn't following the law, gets to file a lawsuit. And the city has to then go hire attorneys and spend all this time trying to decide whether or not it's following its own rules. And if you lose when you sue the city, you don't even have to pay the city's attorney's fees. What it really is an invitation to a flood of frivolous litigation that ties up the city. And keep in mind, this is the city that each of us relies on to provide us services. We do not want them to be spending all their time defending in the courts against frivolous legislation. If you have a cause of action against the city right now, you can sue them. And this initiative was sold, I think, and misunderstood. So we have, a small turnout in a bond election or in an off-cycle proposition election where a small group of people decides for the entire city that we're going to redefine the structure of government.
Well, let me pick it up there and make sure I understand it then. He's already on the books. It's well known. What more would this piece of legislation you have do to blunt the effects of this new charter amendment in Dallas?
It would say that any vote, any charter change by a city, even through the city council itself, is void if it revokes sovereign immunity of the city. This is how state government runs. It's how the federal government runs. It's how every city in Texas runs. You can't do that. The irony here, Jason, is that the state government all the time waives sovereign immunity in specific instances. There's probably 60 bills this session that revoke the city's sovereign immunity under specific circumstances. That's what the state government does. At the same time, there are already laws on the books that void any initiative that the will of the voters otherwise would do. For example, the city of Denton had an initiative to ban fracking. The city of Austin had an initiative to decriminalize marijuana. The state government already passed laws to void those things. This is not out of the ordinary. The only difference is I'm having state law void an initiative that fundamentally altered the structure of city government to the detriment of its own citizens.
If this is already on the books, Senator, why does the legislature have to get involved? It seems like it's an issue for the courts rather than the House and Senate.
That's an excellent point, and it is an issue for the courts. And I think that ultimately the courts are going to strike this thing down. But as a resident of the city of Dallas, I care about the ability of the city to perform its functions and provide services. And until there is a final judicial decision, you have, as former Mayor Mike Rawlings said, the sword of Damocles hanging over the city council's head, making it difficult for people to move forward, making it more expensive to borrow money, discouraging businesses from moving there. This causes untold damage, and I want it to end sooner than later. The second reason is I want it clear that this is not going to be something that we're going to allow people to destroy our cities, so that other cities around the state are protected from this action.
This bill is still in committee right now, a month left in the legislature. Is it going to get a hearing? Is it going to land on the floor in the Senate?
I don't expect it to land on the floor of the Senate. It might. I think it merits it, Jason. More likely, this is going to have to be heard in the courts. At a minimum, we've started a very, very important conversation.
You broke up there at the end. You said at a minimum something?
I think we've started an important conversation here.
And is that the purpose of this?
No, I meant to pass the bill, actually, Jason. The purpose of this was to void what I think was an ambush by special interests that managed to convince voters of something that wasn't true and caused great damage to the ability of city government to deliver.
Monty Bennett, who was behind this financially with Dallas Hero, says there haven't been any frivolous lawsuits to date on this. Do you know of any?
I've been told there actually are 5 lawsuits, and there have been threats of lawsuits from numerous people saying under this new Prop S,
Yeah.
I'm going to sue you if you don't do such and such, right? So it may not be a flood initially, but one stick comes out of the dam and then another stick comes out of the dam, and pretty soon you do have a flood.
I want to ask about the Senate's vote the other day. It was a unanimous vote, I believe, to clarify the state's strict abortion statute here. There have been a lot of concerns from dying women after the original abortion statute was enacted. Is this going to settle that concern now? Do you think doctors will be able to perform an abortion for dangerous pregnancies for these worst situations?
I think it's a big step forward, Jason. I really do. It's been a very difficult um, collaboration between people on both sides of the abortion issue. I've always supported reproductive rights. There are many people who've been staunchly opposed to reproductive rights, but all those people have been in the room over the past couple of years trying to find a way to make sure that whatever else the status of the law is, doctors are going to be able to exercise their independent professional judgment to help women who are in danger. And that is not what was happening for the past couple of years. Even with this bill that sought to clarify the circumstances under which a physician can work, there were concerns on the far right. There were concerns on the left that had to be addressed just in the last few weeks before we passed this bill out of the Senate. And I'm actually very pleased with where we wound up. We wanted to address 2 critical things. One is how this bill might affect the way that other laws are treated in the courts. And we got language in there making it expressly clear that this bill will do nothing to how other laws are determined in the courts. And then secondarily, to preserve, to not go after women under this bill.
And charge them with a crime if they
Right.
pursued that. Okay.
Right. So
You,
it's a much safer bill from a lot of standpoints, and it will help physicians practice and serve their patients in accordance with good medical judgment and probably save lives.
You also have a bill in the legislature to create a statewide bottle deposit program. I remember this back in the 70s when I grew up in Tennessee, where you turn in an empty bottle and get a dime back here. A lot of folks, though, like myself, already recycle. How is this going to be different than what we already do with the blue bin out in the alleys now?
Well, it does a lot of things differently. And first of all, wouldn't it be really cool if instead of recycling 22% of our recyclable beverage containers, we recycled 75% of them? This is a huge economic issue, by the way. We're importing trash from China and from bottle bill states around the country because there's such a demand for what they call feedstock. That is plastics, glass, aluminum. For us to recycle it and use it in manufacturing here. In the meantime, if you look at our lakes and our rivers and our streams and our playgrounds and our streets, they're just choked with trash. So there's a real issue here, both economic and in terms of the beauty in the environment that we live in. How would it be different if we had a deposit program? It would be different because that money can be used to build out our recycling infrastructure. One of the reasons our recycling rates are so low is because it's inconvenient. And so the bottle deposit revenues can be used to build new state-of-the-art recycling facilities that we see around the world. Very, very effective stuff. And wherever you see a bottle can deposit program go into a place, you see recycling rates go up. So it makes a lot of sense to make our state more beautiful and to have these resources available right here for our manufacturers.
And you think that at the end of the day, this is going to drive more people to recycle if they can pick up a can and get a nickel back or something, huh?
That's what we've seen everywhere else on Earth, actually. So I have good reason to think that it would be the case in Texas.
We're a month away from the end of the session here. There's always way more bills to get introduced than actually get passed. What's going to be left on the table this session, do you think?
Well, I think that the House and Senate are now reaching the point where the bills are going to cross from one chamber to the other. And what I think is going to be the exciting thing to watch if you're into politics as a sport is whether or not the one chamber's bills fare well in the other chamber. You know, people look at the Democrat on Republican fights, or cooperation. We look at both of that. What are they doing to fight? What are they doing to cooperate? You know, the chambers of the House and the Senate are sometimes fighting each other and sometimes they're cooperating with each other. So you got to take a look at some of the marquee items like property taxes, education, some of the social regressive stuff that happens around here. How much are the two chambers going to agree or disagree with each other? How to what degree are they going to insist on getting their way? Is there going to be leverage of pushing us into a special session? Are we going to hear the recycling bill get it out of here? There's a lot to watch. If you're a spectator of politics, watching the Texas legislature in April and May can be very interesting and maybe bordering on fun.
It may be bordering on fun. You did prelude to my next question here. Do you expect any special sessions this summer?
I don't want to answer that question, Jason.
You
I
don't want
don't.
to jinx it?
Well, I don't like special sessions. I really
Yeah.
don't. It occasionally, it's just a fact that the system's unable to deliver a result that we've got to have. In the past, I've seen special sessions used to advance legislation that is too awful to pass during the regular session. And I don't appreciate the taxpayers' money being used and legislators' lives being disrupted for another 30 days to move legislation that's just a bunch of political garbage anyway. If we have to do something important in a special session, let's do it. But you know, we're hired and we're paid to come down here, not paid very much, but we're paid to come down here. It's our job, it's our constitutional duty to get this stuff done by June 2nd. And I think we ought to get it done by June 2nd. And if leadership plays a role in that, I think it's more important that we get things done now than try to use special sessions as leverage to score political points. But sometimes that's what special sessions are.
Indeed so. Senator, before we let you go, your name came up a few weeks back here on the program as a potential candidate for U.S. Senate. Is that something you would consider?
I am considering how I can be useful to the state after this session. I'm pretty focused on the session right now. It's very intense, but I am looking at potential statewide run. And there's a couple of different offices that I think might be a place where I could serve the people well, and I'm evaluating that.
And when should we expect an announcement? This summer or when?
Not this week.
Not this week. Senator, always good to see you. I appreciate the time, sir.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.